We're going to move into decimal numbers now for a chapter. And so we're going to try to make sense of this. We'll start off with something simple, addition and subtraction of decimal numbers, and we'll proceed from there. We just left off with fractions. Decimal numbers and fractions have a close correlation between the two. So in the back of your mind, realize that we're going to need to bring fractions in at some point and think about that as well. Today we're going to talk through the way to write the words for decimals. We'll talk about how to add decimals, and we will talk about how to subtract decimals. The connection here with fractions is important. While we won't be doing fractions today, we will eventually be doing fractions. And so understanding the relationship between decimals and fractions is actually very useful, and it really will help you make sense of things. So let's start off with something very simple. I'm asking to write the number 0.54624 in words. And so in order to do this, what we need to do is we need to actually come up with names for each of the place values. So just like with whole numbers, we had place value, with decimals, we have place value. And that allows us to be able to write this in words. So each group in a decimal, each position in a decimal has a place value. And those are the tenths, the hundredths, the thousandths, the 10,000ths, and 100,000ths, and so on. We could continue this process in. So in order to write a decimal number in words, we simply read the number in each group and then tack on the group name. So it's actually quite simple as long as you know the group name. In this case, we would have 0, 54, 600, 2400 thousandths. Okay, that's fairly simple to do. In all practicality, we talk about this, but to be honest, I don't know anybody that really talks about it that way. Basically, people might talk about the tenths and hundredths places, but beyond tenths and hundredths, people are just going to talk about the actual number itself and say something like 0.54624. So the book does make a big deal of this. You can read the section in the book. But what I want to emphasize is that if you see something like this, somebody might say 1 and 2 tenths or 1 and 1/100th. But beyond that, people are just going to read off the number, and that's perfectly fine. And so for this class, I want you to know these positions, but really, I'm not going to make that a major point of emphasis. If you can do the tenths and the hundredths, that's going to be completely fine. So, the example in your book would be to write something like this in words, and we talk through that. But that's not going to be my point of emphasis. Like I said, most people just simply say something like 0.54624, and that's completely reasonable. Adding decimals is something that is far more common. And to add decimals, what you need to be able to do is you need to be able to line up the places. So, as an example, let's take 0.04562 and add to that 0.004. The first thing that you're going to note that I am doing is I am adding in some zeros in order to line everything up nicely. Those zeros are not changing the number at all, but they are allowing me to have all of my columns have a value in it. So let's actually do this arithmetic. 2 plus 0 is 2. 6 plus 0 is 6. 5 plus 4 is 9. 4 plus 0 is 4. 0 plus 0 is 0. I just dropped the decimal point down, and I have 0.04962. So all I'm doing is I am adding straight down and just doing my standard arithmetic. The decimal place stays the same. So my handwriting was too big, so it doesn't quite fit there nicely, but you can see that that decimal place stays the same. Let me see if I can write that in there in a way that is cleaner for you. So something like that. And I'm sorry, that still isn't very clean. You get the basic idea, and that's what I'm looking for you to be able to do on this. Subtraction is very similar. So we're going to have to take care of place value, all of those things. But the idea is that we can do the subtraction. So let me line up my numbers first of all. I want you to notice that I did add in 2 zeros to just make things clean here. Those zeros do not change my number at all. You've probably not seen a 0 written before a number like this. There's nothing wrong with it. I do have 0 in my 10th place in this number, or my 10's place in this number, and so that hasn't changed it. Same thing here. I do have 0 in my 10,000th place. Nothing has changed. It's all okay, but this allows me to keep my place value a little bit better. So let's go ahead and run the subtraction. So now I've got 5 minus 0, that's simply 5. I've got 6 minus 2, which is 4. I've got 4 minus 6. I can't do 4 minus 6. I need to borrow, so I'm going to take from the next one up, just like we were borrowing before, so I'm taking now from the 10th place. I can do 14 minus 6. That's 8. 2 minus 9, again, not something I can do. But I can do 12 minus 9, that's 3. I copy down my decimal point. I have 1 minus 3, again, not something I can do. 11 minus 3. And I've got 8.3845.